welcome to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. I'm your host, Louis Padian. I hope that you're doing well and are enjoying the podcast and the topics we've covered so far. These podcasts are released every Monday, Wednesday and Friday, so be sure to subscribe wherever you are listening to be kept up to date. So today we are going to be covering a really commonly thought or asked question is, can you outwork a bad diet? And this has come about really because you might see people online eating really, really highly nutritious diets and being in good shape, but then there might be people who are getting just good results who diets don't seem to be as good. And it's one of the old sayings that you can't outwork a bad diet, but actually we need to discuss whether that is the case, and potentially we should be asking a more important question of, should you? So let's have a look at one of the most famously quoted studies around this, and it was more of an observational sort of study by a professor of nutrition from Kansas State University called Mark Howell in 2010, and he undertook a diet to demonstrate to his students that you can eat very low nutrition food or very highly palatable, highly processed food and still lose weight. And what he did was he ate something called a Twinkie, and just ate Twinkies plus loads of Doritos, some cereals, Oreos, loads of highly processed foods that people might say are quote unquote healthy. And his diet on the whole probably wasn't very healthy, it wasn't very nutritious. But over 10 weeks he lost 27 pounds. So his goal at the end of it was to lose weight, and he achieved that with a really poor diet. And he did add some things in there, so he added a multivitamin in there and a protein shake to help with sort of maintaining muscle mass, but on the whole it was a pretty poor diet. It was very low nutritional value, vitamins, minerals, fiber, and was high in sort of sugars, saturated fat, but he got lots of health benefits from weight loss overall, with regards to lowering his cholesterol. I think he's improved his blood pressure, but his BMI was decreased as well. So that will probably answer the question, is that you can do it, but the real question would be that should we do it? So there's lots of examples of people eating a bad diet. I ate a bad diet when I was a rugby player. My diet was really, really poor, not very high in fruits and vegetables, high in lots of processed foods, low nutritional value, lots of sort of oven pizzas, things like that, just to get calories in. I was expending a lot of energy and I needed to get energy in. And I wasn't on this level, but you see it on elite bodybuilders or powerlifters or strongmen, the amount of food that they need to eat to maintain the muscle mass and grow is phenomenal. And doing that from whole nutritious foods can be really difficult, because as we know, whole foods tend to be higher in volume, lower in calories, high in vitamins and minerals, yes, but high in fiber, and tend to be harder to overeat on, and they're almost like force feeding in a way. And you'll probably see a lot of bodybuilders and things like that force feeding, and that isn't in line with health. And we're not talking about health with rugby players, we're not talking about health with bodybuilders and powerlifters or strongmen. They're performance athletes and they've got a goal that they want to achieve. But if we have a look at their diet, some of them, or I know my diet at the time was really poor, but I was probably the leanest I'd ever been, strongest, fittest that I'd ever been as well. And it wasn't because I was eating a really, really healthy and balanced diet. I was actually just working really, really hard and technically outworking a poor diet. Looking back, I probably should have focused on that a bit more, but I didn't know any better at the time. But when we look at this, most of us aren't elite athletes. Most of us aren't wanting to be as big and as strong as possible. Most of us are just wanting to manage our weight a bit better, probably feel a bit fitter, a little bit healthier, get rid of aches and pains, and just be happier in general. And there was this really good concept that I'm a big fan of, and hopefully it's something that you can take away today. It is called flexible dieting, or if it fits your macros, you might have heard of, or the 80-20 principle. And one of the main guys that pushed this is called Alan Aragon, and he's a really well-known nutritionist, the founder of If It Fits Your Macros. And basically, the concept of 80-20 is that 80% of your food coming from whole, unprocessed foods, fruits, vegetables, lean meats, etc., and 20% coming from processed foods, foods that you enjoy. So where I'd frame it is foods for the body, foods for the soul. And this can be a really good way to balance out your diet. There's a really good quote, and it's basically every habit and behavior of choice you make is a vote for the person you want to be. And if we take this 80-20 principle,
I think that's a really good analogy to use here, because 80% of our choices come from whole and processed food, probably in line with us want to lose weight, improve our performance, feeling a bit healthier, having more fibre in our diet, things like that. But the 20% potentially aren't as aligned with that health element if we're looking at reducing body fat, lowering body weight, but they could be promoting health in other ways. Social health, emotional health, physical health, financial health, for example. And all of those things come into play. And this is the principle that I use a lot for my clients, is this flexibility within their diet. We don't exclude foods, we don't ban foods. We might reduce or replace certain foods to make the diet a bit better on the whole. But I think eliminating foods completely, especially ones that you enjoy and sort of crave potentially, is a fast road for you overeating on them, developing a really poor all or nothing relationship with them. So having this 80-20, and it's not a hard line 80-20 where it had to be exactly 80% of your diet coming from whole foods and 20% coming from processed foods. That might vary day to day, meal to meal. That you might have a 70-30, 60-40, 50-50 on some days. Might be days where you're eating more processed foods than others. But on the whole, if we're averaging 80-20, then we're probably going to be improving our diet in some case. So I think having this approach develops a better relationship with processed foods. We know that a diet rich in processed foods can lead to weight loss, but there's lots of things like that professor, for example, when he lost 27 pounds, having a highly processed diet, probably going to be foods that are quite small in volume, high in calories, not very satisfying, not very satiating. You're probably quite hungry a lot of the time. You probably wouldn't enjoy your meals that much, as on the whole, you probably wouldn't feel great digestively as well. So there's lots of trade-offs with these, and it's understanding what trade-offs are worthwhile for people and just making an informed decision around it. So when we talk about this, we talk about finding a balance, and balance is something that's thrown around in the health and fitness industry. And I think it's about you understanding what the right balance looks like for you. And that takes some time, that takes some fiddling, takes some learning, some mistakes potentially. But what we tend to find is that people who develop this diet flexibility or cognitive flexibility in food have better health outcomes. And there was this research paper that found that people who used the 80-20 principle lost 15 pounds over 12 weeks, which is a good amount of weight to lose. So if you imagine having 20% of your diet coming from those processed foods and learning how to enjoy them, not feeling guilty, not feeling shameful around them, then I feel like it's a real positive step for developing sustainable habits long term. And then when we build those sustainable habits, we get sustainable results as well. So imagine losing your weight, enjoy your diet, having that flexibility, learning ways to enjoy these whole foods, ways to cook them, what sort of food pairings work well together, and having a diet that you actually look forward to and enjoy means that you're going to stay and get those results long term and keep them, and it shouldn't be or feel like too much effort to do so. So when we talk about this 80-20 principle, what sort of things are we looking for? So prioritizing whole foods. So we're talking about fruits, vegetables, whole grains, lean proteins. Those are sort of groups that would probably be increasing some milk and dairy in there as well. Alongside that, limiting processed foods, not eliminating, limiting. And those foods that are going to be sort of like sweets, chocolates, cakes, crisps, all those sorts of things, pastries, and things that are going to be probably higher in calories, taste bloody delicious, but are really easy to overeat on. So managing your energy intake around them is going to be a bit more difficult. But having flexibility in there actually will mean that you can scratch that itch, enjoy that food without guilt or shame, and then also still get the rewards that you deserve long term. Two of the things that I'd recommend would be practicing mindful eating, especially around these highly palatable foods, the sort of ones that are easy to overeat on, sweets, chocolates, cakes. Be more mindful in your approach. So listening to your fullness cues, being more mindful when you eat them, so not being distracted while you're eating them, practicing eating and chewing the foods that you're having rather than getting them down as quickly as possible. And these things can be really difficult, and again, probably won't happen first time, but just developing that awareness, building that skill of mindful eating. And I'll probably do a whole episode of mindful eating with lots of different things that you can work on, but it's a really good way to slow yourself down and get to a point where you can push that food away going, I've had enough, I'm quite satisfied now, and I can save that bit for later, for another time. So I did a post a while ago, and it was not having all the chocolate doesn't mean that you can't have some of it later, you can't have some of it, you can't give it to someone else. It's preventing yourself from having all the chocolate right now. It might mean that you can have some later on and really enjoy it. What we tend to see is that people who, for example, get a bar of chocolate in a family-sized one, 200-gram one, and they'll feel guilty chain, so they'll get it out of sight as quick as they can, all in one sitting. When actually, if they break it down and go, right, have a bit now, put it away, put it in the cupboard out of the way, really enjoy that quarter of a bar that they bought, then the other 3/4 there for maybe later on if they wanted some more, but actually be there for a couple of days' time, maybe could give someone else it. All these positive outcomes that can come from having a bit more of a mindful approach to these foods. Last of all, as I've said already, find balance. So finding balance with your goals, your body, your food for the body, food for the soul, and seeing what that strikes you. One of the key questions I ask some of my clients is, how well are you striking the balance with regards to your food and activity? And that isn't a simple yes or no answer. It's definitely more of a feeling. And usually, if people are scoring higher on the scale, they're usually having a more nutritious diet, but still having some flexibility in there as well, whilst achieving their goals. And that's the sweet point that we want to hit. If you don't feel that you're striking the balance with your goals plus your actual enjoyment of food, then something's going to go amiss. You're not going to stick to that diet very long. So trying to find the sustainable approach, which takes some time, takes some fiddling, but it's going to get you where you want to be and allow you to stay there long term. So in summary, can you outwork a bad diet? You can, but why would you want to? It's definitely a lot more effort. You're causing a lot more stress and strain when actually you can make things a lot easier, a lot more straightforward, a lot more sustainable long term, just by focusing a bit more effort on the diet side of things. If you are the person that feels that you want to improve on your diet and make things a bit easier, a flexible approach can definitely help with that. 80-20 principle is a good way to do it. Flexible dieting, some people call it, or fix your macros. All great approaches that allow you to monitor your energy balance, have a bit more flexibility with your foods, having some more nutritious foods in there, so improving the diet on the whole, but also allowing you to enjoy these highly palatable foods, really tasty foods, these foods for the soul, without guilt or shame around them. Actually include them in a healthy diet long term, which means that you're probably going to be able to stick to it long term. And if you are going to try a more flexible approach, then there's 4 different things to include in there. So we've got your prioritizing whole foods, so fruits, vegetables, lean protein, whole grains. Those are foods that I tend to focus on with my clients and monitoring those to ensure that we're getting enough of those into the diet. Limiting your processed food intake, so being mindful around the portions and the amounts that you're having and not overstepping the mark on them. More on the whole, having around 20% of your diet coming from there. Then also having a more mindful approach to those foods as well, so practicing more mindful techniques of distraction-free meals, or especially for having those snacks, ensuring that you're portioning it out right for you, taking your time eating them rather than just inhaling them. And these things take time, so that will take us a while to come around, but definitely a skill worth developing. And then last of all is finding the balance. So find the balance that's going to work for you in regards to activity, focusing on your diet, managing the lifestyle and leading the life that you want to live, making sure that all those things are aligned, that you can live a healthier and happier life long term.
So there you have it. Thank you very much for listening to today's episode of the Balanced Approach podcast. If you have any questions, queries, or would like to reach out to me, please do. I am at Louis Padian Nutrition, which is at LOUISPADIAN Nutrition on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and all other social media platforms. If you're looking for support in achieving your goals and living a healthier, happier, and more balanced life in the process, click the link below and inquire about working with me. Remember to subscribe to the Balanced Approach podcast wherever you're listening for more insightful episodes, and I look forward to speaking to you soon.